Kyle, thank you for coming. I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule. I know you're incredibly busy. Um,
Yeah.
Thank you for dressing up as much as you can. This is a serious meeting, Kyle. I don't know really how to express emotion as a human being, but I'm seething right now. I know you can't tell that. I always talk in a very quiet tone, no matter what I'm talking about or who's in the room. But really, this is me being angry, and this is very serious. So I'm going to have a series of questions for you, Kyle, and I would like you to answer them to the best of your ability. And this will only take about 15 or 20 minutes. But this is serious. I need you to listen to me right now. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good, man. What's up?
All right. First of all, these violations with OTAs. I got to ask you, I have the questions written down because, well, they're really Parag's questions. He told me to ask these, and I trust Parag. He seems to know what he's doing. So I'm going to be looking at my notepad for a second. First, Kyle, why did you allow these illegal activities knowing the consequences? I mean, first, let me just say, sorry, Parag wanted me to mention that you've been in the NFL since 2004. You know the rules. You know the league can ask for your practice tapes at any time. So why'd you allow these illegal activities knowing the consequences?
I mean, come on, Jet. I've been in this league for 16 years, right? I mean, that's just a fact. I know that everybody's doing it. The Seahawks are doing it. The Rams are doing it, man. And if you want us to keep up with the rest of the division, we got to do it too, man. That's just the way it goes in this league.
Okay, Kyle, I hear you. But the Seahawks didn't get caught. The only people who got caught are us, the Jaguars with Urban Meyer, who has no idea what he's doing and is in his first year as a head coach in the league, and Mike McCarthy, who no one respects. People respect you, Kyle. I respect you. I wouldn't expect you to put yourself in this group. So my second question to you is, what made you think you would get away with doing these illegal activities?
I mean, it sounds like you're mentioning three very high quality organizations there. It's something my dad always did, right? I mean, we always did that when I was showing up to practices as the ball boy and watching it. And it never came to anything, right? I mean, it was just they looked the other way, but it's really just money. I mean, you got plenty of that, Jed. So I feel like we're good.
So what you're saying is that did you willfully disregard the rules, or did you willfully break them, or did you just not care?
I mean, a little bit of both, right? Like, do I care? No, it's your money. And that's just, you got a lot of it. So I'm okay with that. And I think you are too. We've certainly spent some money in some questionable areas. But, like Harbaugh used to tell you, iron sharpens iron, right? I know you heard that before. We got to do it. We got to do it in these practices. We need these people to get to a certain level. And the only way we're going to get there is practicing old school football the way my dad used to do it.
Well, Kyle, let me be real clear. Money's not an issue here. I can handle 100 grand. I can handle 150 grand. It's not about the money. It's really about the principle of the thing. So I have more questions. What is to be gained from illegal bump and run coverage drills in May while players are wearing no pads and only rookies and backups are on the field? Why did you do it to begin with? What was to be gained?
Hey, man, like I said, iron sharpens iron. We got to practice these things. We got to make sure we're getting the reps. We got to make sure that these guys know exactly what I expect of them. I mean, it's not as if we have any injury history to worry about. We just got to get out there and be physical, really pound the bodies. You know what I mean?
How'd you let this happen twice, though? I mean, I understand one violation in rookie minicamp, but then another one in OTAs. How did you get caught twice, Kyle?
I mean, I think that's something where you got to look a little bit in the mirror there, because you've been letting me get away with stuff for a long time. So I just assumed that everybody would.
You know, I think you're right. I think I have been a big time enabler of you. And that's the purpose of this meeting today. I'm trying to correct that. Final question. Why did you lie to the press about this? I mean, it's one thing to get caught once. It's another thing to get caught twice. You knew the information was going to come out. Why'd you lie?
You know, Jed, I feel like these questions I feel like you've been watching Grant's show again, man. I feel like this is a little bit out of left field. He's a very smart young man. You and Parag are just coming up with this all on your own. You're not watching Grant Cohn's channel again?
I think Grant Cohn is a very smart, up-and-coming analyst that you should probably hire onto your staff.
That makes one of us. Anyway, yeah, I I do what I do, right? I need to be free. I need to be unencumbered. I need to be able to do practices how I want to do them. That's the bottom line.
Let me tell you something, Kyle. I like you. There's a reason that I hired you. But this organization has a mantra that goes back way before you and me, and it's winning with class. And that's our mission statement here. And right now, you're the one jeopardizing that. You're the one lying to the press. You're the one creating the perception that our organization doesn't care about player safety. You're the one that's making the league step in and say, you guys are breaking the rules. You guys are doing illegal activities. You're the one that needs to fix this. And what I want to tell you is, I'm not going to stand for you to sully our classy organization's name, because say what you want about John Lynch, he gets it. And I don't know if you do. So that's not a question, Kyle. Those are my questions. And now I have some other things I want to tell you.
I mean, I just got to say, like, all I do is win, with class or without. I mean, just look at the number of winning seasons that we have had under my reign. It's unheard of. You don't want to stop that level of winning, Jed. You got to stick with me. You got to trust me. You got to know that I am dialing this in.
Look, I hired you because you're an expert. I hired you for your offense. All right. Let's be clear. I didn't really know about your leadership skills. I hired you for your offense. I like your offense. But now I know you. And I know what your biggest weakness is. Would you like me to tell you what it is?
I mean, I would love to know.
Okay. Here's your biggest weakness, Kyle. Your biggest weakness. Hold on. Let me look again. Oh, Parag, right here. He circled it. Management skills. Practice management. Game management. Clock management. I love your offense, but Kyle, be honest with yourself. If you had these management skills, which are required from a head coach, you would have not one, but 2 Super Bowl championships to your name right now. Would you not?
I mean, maybe. Listen, Jed, I know you and I got a good bond. You and I, we're like that. And it feels like you're listening too much to Parag here. We're talking about practice here. Mm-hmm. We're talking not a game, not all the games that I'll be winning as a head coach, but practice. And, I mean, did I tighten up a little bit in a couple of Super Bowls where there's some questionable play calls? Maybe. But it's also possible that we could just blame the defense for those 2 losses. And clearly we have solved that problem, shipping it off to New York. I'm telling you, it's dialed in now, Jed. You got to trust me. See,
and this is exactly what I'm talking about right here, man. You're talking about the defense like you're not in charge of that. I love your offense, Kyle. You're a hell of a play caller, but I hired you to be the head coach. I hired you to take accountability for everything. If the defense gives up 21 points in the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl, you're accountable. You're the head coach. If a rookie creates a violation that I have to pay for, you should be accountable. If you're not, Kyle, look at me. If you're not the one on the field telling people what they can and can't do, who's going to do it? It's got to be you, Kyle. I need you to take accountability here, and that's what management is all about. I understand it's boring. You're very focused on the details of X's and O's, which are thrilling to you. This stuff is planning an organization and is boring, but that's the job. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't work on your management skills, you're not going to make it as a head coach. And I'm going to have to find someone else, Kyle. I'm telling you this right now. Do you not hear the words coming out of my mouth? Are you surprised that we're having this conversation?
Jed, let's get serious for a moment here. I'm sorry, Jed. I'm sorry I cost you that money. But, I mean, I'm a pretty wanted head coach myself. So I got a list of teams ready to take me on just in case you want to move forward. I'll work on my management skills, though. I feel like I could improve there. But I'm a little concerned with where we're at, man. I mean, usually we got this good vibe. You're cool with me. And now you're coming at me in this way that I'm not used to, man. I mean, think back to Cabo, Jed. Oh, wait, maybe I didn't invite you to Cabo. Think back to those dinners at your house, Jed, where we were just chilling. That's the vibe that we got here. You just kind of let me do my own thing. It's cool.
And I think that's the problem. I think that's the problem is I've told you that everything you do is good. Everything you want to do is right. And it's time that I impose some rules for you. So, Kyle, I'm telling you, you need to work on your management. It's not a suggestion. It's not, no, it's not a suggestion. I'm going to tell you how you're going to work on your management. All right. This is what I want you to do. You are an excellent play caller, and there are some people in this business who are excellent play callers and excellent head coaches. Andy Reid. But Andy Reid has a lot more experience than you. And you haven't demonstrated that you're both an excellent head coach and an excellent play caller. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to delegate the play calling duties. I want you to let Mike McDaniel call the plays this year. I don't want you calling the plays, Kyle. I know you think that you're the best play caller of all time. I didn't hire you to do that. I didn't hire you to do that. I hired you to be the head coach. I want you to take accountability for these 2 infractions. I want you to pay the whole $150,000, not because I'm cheap, but because I want you to take accountability as a token of your leadership. Pay for it. I didn't make the mistake. You did.
That's cold, Jed. That's cold.
I want Mike McDaniel calling the plays this year. I want him to be the play caller.
But what if I just script out all the plays, but then I let Mike call them, say the words of what the play is. Like I'll script the whole game and then I'll hand that script to Mike and he can call those plays. His voice will be calling I'll be designing the plays and saying when they go, but it'll be him over the microphone. Would that work? Cool?
We could have had this negotiation if you had just had 1 violation in the spring, but since you had 2 and you clearly can't handle the details of being a head coach while handling the details of being a play caller, you got to pick one. And you know what? I'm picking for you because I hired you to do a specific job, head coach. And you keep saying, well, my plays are good. My offense is good. The defense is no, that I want you to be the head coach, Kyle. And if you think that Mike McDaniel isn't good enough to call the plays, then why did we hire him? Why did we promote him? He's been with you every year step of the way. Is he not ready?
Yeah, because he's cool. He's my boy.
So can you handle this, Kyle? Or are you going to prove to me that you can do both? Because this is year 5, and I don't see an improvement in terms of your management skills, in terms of your head coaching. I mean, now we're having issues in spring practices. Let me tell you something. If Al Davis were the owner of this team, he would have been watching you. He would have been on the field saying, don't do that. See, me, I don't know what I'm looking at. I have no idea the rules of football. But if Al Davis were, Eddie D were owning this team, he wouldn't have let this happen. He'd be your babysitter. I can't babysit you, Kyle. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's a fluke that I even have this job.
I mean, I would say Eddie would have let my dad get away. He would have paid the fine. He would have said, Mike, it's cool. Keep doing what you're doing because you're winning. And that's all that matters, winning with class. And that's what I'm all about, winning with class. And I mean, it's consistent. That's what I'm doing. So, I'll give it my Jed. I hear you. I don't want to hear you, but I hear you.
Kyle, I don't think you hear me. All right. So I'm going to say it one more way. I don't think you really hear me. I'm telling you what you need to do. And now I'm telling you something else. You may not know it, although I think you should. You've been in the league long enough. Every owner has an index card in his top drawer, 3x5, 4x6, and it's got like 4 or 5 names on it. Those names are the head coaches they would call, the head coach candidates they would call if the current head coach gets fired. Kyle, you don't think I have that index card? You don't think I have a list of names that I'm interested? I like you very much. You don't think there's you don't think I can replace you? So let me show you the name. Let me tell you.
Let's see it. You got Chip Kelly on there? What's up?
No, I don't have Chip Kelly on there. Kyle, I have Eric Bieniemy on there.
Oh,
this guy developed the quarterback you didn't want, Patrick Mahomes. He beat you in the Super Bowl. He comes from the Andy Reid tree, which is much more closely aligned to the Bill Walsh West Coast offense than what you and Mike Shanahan do. And a lot of players respect this guy. So you got to win this year, Kyle. You got to win. If you make the playoffs and you don't get all your players hurt in practice, then we don't have a problem. But if you do, don't think I'll just stick by you forever. I got a list of names right now.
I mean, I don't like being threatened, but I get it. I mean, I would say that you might have a hard time bringing in one of those top tier coaches with the fact that we've given away your next 2 first-round picks. But I can win with what we have. I can dial this team in. Jed, I think you got to give me one more shot to both be the head coach and the game manager, I think I can do it. Put me in, coach.
I'll give you one more shot, but I want to tell you something. If you think that if I were to get rid of you, that I have to call Chip Kelly or Jim Tom Sula, you're crazy. Because I got Trey Lance now, and a lot of people would like to coach him. And I got to think that the person who developed Patrick Mahomes would be interested in coaching a very similar young man in Trey Lance. So, yeah, I'm going to give you another chance. And if you really insist on still calling plays, fine. But if you have an issue with this, management issues again, midseason, I want you to give the play calling duties to Mike McDaniel and focus on being a head coach. And if you can't be the head coach I hired you to be, you know what I'm going to do. So you got one more chance, but don't act like this season there isn't any pressure on you. There is pressure on you. I'm saying it right now to your face. Now, Jed York wouldn't say anything like that. He would be much more quiet. I broke the fourth wall. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
He would.
For sure.
So I turned into like someone from like an Elmore Leonard book at the end. I tried to be meek and quiet.
Well, I mean, the Kyle Shanahan impersonation that I just did there was awful.
Dead on.
Oh, I thought that was terrible. Terrible. I mean, it slipped into God knows what else.
Do you think Jed York had the guts to have that meeting with Kyle?
No, I mean,
think he did.
I think he could have a meeting with Kyle and talk about that subject. I don't think it would go anything like that. I think that it would be totally different.
No,
and I mean, much more respectful both ways. Obviously,
that's how Al Davis would do it, right?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, Al Davis might have just let him
New
go.
Yorker. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, Al Davis would have been on the field. He was a coach himself. He would have been on the field, stopping it. Anyway, the Kyle Shanahan stuff is amusing. It's embarrassing. It's preventable. It's off-season fodder. It doesn't mean the Niners are going to have a bad year. It gives us something to talk about. But at the same time, like, oh man, if I were Jed, I would be super pissed. That's all I'm saying. I would be super pissed. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is his money. I don't know. If I were Jed, I think that I would fall kind of in that I get it mindset of what Kyle's trying to do. I don't really fault him for trying to skirt the rules. I do fault him for not being smart enough to get the rookie on the same page so that he didn't blast that video out so that it didn't get caught. But I'm fine with him doing the bump and run early on in practice.
It's like you try to skirt the rules, right? Bill Belichick tries to skirt the rules, but these ones, it's like a kid trying to sneak out of his parents' house at 8:30 at night. Like, what were you thinking on that? Well, you knew you were going to get caught. First of all, the players can report you anonymously. The players know the rules. They can go to the Players Association in the league and be like, look, we were doing bump and run coverage. Second of all, the players outed them. Like Diamador Lenore posted it himself.
Yeah.
He posted it himself. Also, the press was there. You did it in front of us. We could have told. So it just seems like it's so careless.
It's brazen. Yeah.
Brazen.
It is very brazen.
Brazen. So, Kyle, you win because no one cares if you win. No one cares. But if you lose, it's just like an endless list of patterns that people can point to and then make a case for Eric Bieniemy, because I think a lot of fans would be intrigued by Eric Bieniemy.
I think so too. And I think it's a fair. So first of all, I don't think Kyle is as ridiculous as that whatever impression I just did right there. Like, I do think he's standoffish. I do think that he is smug in some regards, but obviously that was a caricature of anything that he is. I do believe that it is fair to criticize him about the game manager stuff. And it does really feel like, especially in those two Super Bowls, but also in some other big time moments, that he tensed up, that he tightened up and the play calling tightened up and his decision making wasn't as good as it normally is. And I think that's a result of feeling the pressure. And my hope is that enough repetitions of being in big games, he'll get over that. But some people never do. Some people are either clutch or not.
Did you ever see Band of Brothers?
Yes, the HBO show, not the whole series, but I've seen some.
First episode. Have you seen the first episode where they're in basic training? And the boot camp officer is David Schwimmer. And he's a real hard ass. And he's all up in everyone's crap. And he's constantly making them run the hill and telling them what to do. And they get in a combat simulation thing. And he flips. He loses it. He gets he loses the map and puts him in a wrong spot. And they demote him. They're like, you know what? You're not cut out for combat. And they just decide, you're not. It's not that you need to improve. You just don't have it. And I'm not calling Kyle Shanahan David Schwimmer from Band of Brothers, but this is why it's very serious. The military doesn't mess around. They say, like, you're fit for management. You're fit to lead. You're not.
Right.
It's just what, and you're like 22 at this point where they're making these determinations, right? So Kyle,
the key is like you really are asking him to do two things when he's calling plays and when he's managing the game, because that is two separate roles. Yes. And there's a reason that most coaches send that play calling duties to another offensive coordinator so that they can focus more on one and not get bogged down in both. Because in those high pressure moments, when you're trying to manage the clock, when you're trying to understand what's going on in the game and call the plays, that's tough, man. And it's just having a second voice at that point, that like a second reasonable person that can come in and say, hey, that's a bad idea. Let's go back to what works. Let's go back to what we've done consistently throughout the year. Let's not stray from what we do best. And reasonable minds together can prevail. When it's just one person without additional inputs, they can start to spin out and go a little bit crazy. And it feels as if that happened certainly in the 28-3 collapse and to some degree in the loss for the Niners.
Hey, like, what are you focused on? Are you focused on the next play, setting up a series of plays, which is great. It's what you need to as a play caller, or the big picture of winning the game, all three phases, special teams, defense, the whole thing. It seems to me that maybe some coaches can do the whole thing. Now, Andy Reid has won a Super Bowl doing the whole thing. Although for years people said, well, he's just not very good at managing the clock. I mean, managing the game, that was his thing.
Right.
Why? Because he's calling the plays. It's very difficult. It took him 20 years of experience before he could do both and win a Super Bowl. Plus Patrick Mahomes. He needed Patrick Mahomes as well.
Right.
And now he also lost the Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes, which is remarkable. But
it is.
Yeah.
Having a player like that is a calming influence. I can imagine for Kyle having Jimmy back there, who is prone to these sort of what the hell was that type of plays. That's not a calming influence. And so he's got to do something to take some pressure off himself. I don't care whether that's meditation, yoga, whatever it is. He needs to take some pressure off himself.
Matt H says someone needed to tell Kyle to keep running the speed sweep to Debo in Super Bowl 54. Random scrutinized ground crew for injuries. Is the practice turf the issue? I get this question more than any question. Is the practice turf the issue? I get it all the time. And I think it's interesting. No, it's not the practice turf. It's the same turf they've had since the Seifert and Walsh days. It just shows, and it's not like that. Fans don't want to blame the head coach, because if the head coach is the problem, that means you have a systemic issue in your organization. It's very bad.
Right.
It's hard to fix. If it's the turf, you can fix it in a day, right? In a week, get a new turf. If it's the head coach, what do you say? What do you do? Hey, Kyle, be a better leader.
Right.
What if he's not? What if he's just a coordinator and he's good at it? I don't know. Like that was North Turner's issue back in the 90s.
And I struggle with the idea that I see how good Kyle is with the eye test, where I'm watching the games, I'm watching the play design, I'm watching the execution.
I love his
It's amazing. And I'm willing to forgive some of the shortcomings.
Yes.
But when they start to cost additional games, I mean, it's tough. You have to address it. You have to get better. You can't just rely on that genius.
And you kept like joking around about your record. It was like, yeah, man, what about your record? Like, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The fact that this offseason, did I lose internet here?
No, you're good on mine.
Okay. I'm all right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, tell me if I get fuzzy, because I can go to the hotspot. Cool. The fact that you got you got 3 players hurt in the spring training program. The fact that you got caught twice. It's like, damn, man, like what a bust. Were you just out of practice because you didn't do it last year? I don't know. Anyway, I know Niner fans really don't like to hear us go at their coach. Niner fans are very protective of Kyle Shanahan. Here's the thing, though. If he gets fired and Kyle hires Eric Bieniemy, you're going to be very protective of Eric Bieniemy. You're going to love Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah.
Be open-minded here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can relate. I look back on the impression I just did of Kyle and would be mortified if I had to sit with Kyle as a fan and watch him watch me impersonate him. That would devastate me, right? Because I look up to him as a fanboy. Like he's a fantastic genius coach.
Yeah. So he's an offensive innovator, no question about it.
Yeah.
Offensive innovator. He just seems to be much more, I've said it a million times. You just got to love the boring parts of being a head coach, Kyle. You got to learn to love it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because you know why? Because being a head coach pays you $10 million a year. Being a coordinator pay you about maybe 1.5. So don't take a demotion. Learn to love it, Kyle.
Yep.
Learn to delegate.
Or delegate. That could be the key for him, that he may not want to give up the play calling duties, but he has to at least bring in someone game days that's focused on game management. Then someone who's in his ear saying, hey, look, this is what we need to do in this particular situation. He needs additional voices.
A game management coordinator, AKA a head coach.
Yes.
Yes. No, I love that. You're absolutely right. Okay, enough of Kyle. Kyle, thank you for putting up with us. It's all in good
Absolutely.
fun. We like you very much. Good luck. This is really Jed's problem. We're just really trying to help Jed on this one. And so, yeah, anyway, 94 throwbacks. The theme of the week is the throwbacks to 94. That was the first year I remember being a Niner fan. I'm no longer a fan. So these 94 team, I remember the whole starting lineup. I remember Lee Woodall, Gary Plummer.
Yes.
Tim McDonald. It was a great
Tim
team.
McDonald.
So what we want to do is shed light on one of these forgotten champions from 1994. This week we want to do, William Floyd, bar none, the fullback. Why don't you do it?
Yeah. So little intro of the topic. So obviously the 94 throwbacks, which are in fact the 55 throwbacks. Cool story about Seifert wanting those 55 throwbacks because he was like selling popcorn at Kezar Stadium in 55.
True.
And he remembers those throwbacks. And now you have the tie of Kyle being the water boy on 94 and reliving those throwbacks as well. So a lot of history. Fans love the throwbacks. I love the throwbacks. They're beautiful. If we're going to go in and talk about some of the players on that team, what better than the first round pick from that year? First round draft pick, 1994, William bar none Floyd.
First round pick. People forget that.
First round. He was the last fullback taken in the first round. That was the last time that happened. Yes. I mean, that's absurd to think of nowadays. We barely take running backs in the first round.
Sure.
We certainly don't take fullbacks in the first round.
That's right.
He was taken 28th overall because obviously we were a winning team back then. Obviously won the Super Bowl his rookie season.
You know who was the first round pick that year for the Niners? I believe.
Who?
Bryant Young.
Oh, yeah.
Am I wrong?
I don't think so. But now I got to look it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up. You keep talking about bar none.
Okay. Bar none. He set the record in the playoffs. The only person at that time, the first rookie to rush for 3 touchdowns in a playoff game against the Bears in the divisional round. 3 touchdowns for a fullback. He was putting up stats. And then he did 1 touchdown in both the NFC Championship game against Dallas and another one in the Super Bowl. I mean, we were throwing up points in both of those games, so it's not super surprising. But then check this out. This stat blew me away because in 95, he actually got injured in week 9, and I don't know how that affected his career. I think it was the
big time.
Yeah, I think it was something that really derailed what was the trajectory for him. But he was leading the league in receptions at that point. Week 8, not like week 3, halfway through the NFL season in 1995, the fullback for the 49ers was leading the league in receptions, 47 receptions.
You could argue that Ricky Waters, William Floyd tandem was the best fullback running back tandem the Niners have had since Tom Rathman and Roger Craig.
Yeah,
they were great for that year and a half. That year, they were only together 1 year because then Waters left in 95 to go to Philly and play with Gruden.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Floyd got injured in 95. Yeah. I think that injury could have been one of the major things that derailed a repeat, a back-to-back in the Super Bowl. When you look at your leading receiver at that time, I mean, I don't expect that would have carried through for the entirety of the season, but perhaps it would have. Perhaps
not with Jerry Rice on the team.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, a fullback who was on pace for almost 100 catch season is just absurd.
It is.
It got me thinking, let's drag this towards today for the fans that are caring about what happens this year. It got me thinking about Juice, man, and the sort of criminal underuse of that guy. You've talked about this many times, that you've got a player you're paying as if he is the best best fullback in the league, bar none, and you don't use him like that.
True.
So I think that we have to look back as an organization. The 49ers need to look back as an organization and see how Floyd was used and inspire themselves to get Juice some additional touches.
Absolutely. What was interesting is, you know who was calling plays for bar none Floyd in 1994?
Mike Shanahan.
Yes. Now, I believe in 95, when he was on pace to catch all those passes, that was Mark Trestman.
I think you're right. Mike had moved on to Denver.
Who wanted the Niners to draft William Floyd? Mike. I would imagine the offensive coordinator had some input. And it's interesting that Mike Shanahan drafted a fullback in round 1, William Floyd, and Kyle Shanahan has spent all this money on Kyle Juszczyk. There's a similar philosophy. It's just that Kyle forgets to use him. So
he does. He's been in SF for 4 years. Only once has he eclipsed 10 carries for Juice. Only once, all single digits until 2020, where he got 17 carries. Yeah. He's never surpassed 33 catches in the first year. That was the first year he had 33 catches, never beyond that.
And that's the thing about Floyd. Like, Floyd could run the ball.
Yes.
Juszczyk is a little bit more of like a tight end. I kind of prefer throwing him the ball than handing him the ball. He's got good hands. William Floyd was a hell of a runner. He was a little bit like Mike Allstott before Mike Allstott.
He was. I mean, people now compare them looking at their body of work. And I actually saw an article that had William Floyd as overrated, which I thought was just a ridiculous take. But
freaking champion.
Yeah. A champion.
Freaking champion.
It's just like when someone's career gets derailed by an injury, to then say that they were in some way overrated, that just seems foolish to me.
Yeah. So William Floyd, if you're watching, we're putting some respect on your name.
Putting some respect on it. And Juice, if you're watching, we want to get you the ball more this year. Let's go 50 catches. 50.
We do. I don't know about your head coach who can't even get through a spring training program without getting 2 fines, but sorry.
Yeah, it's unclear.
I couldn't help myself. All right. Speaking of putting respect on players' names, Jimmy Ward.
Great transition.
He wants. Thank you. I try. He wants the respect, Rob.
He does.
He's going on Instagram. Can you? I'm not on Instagram. Can you explain to the kids?
Yeah, I just randomly popped on and he was doing a live, so I got on there and there was some bearded gentleman who was asking him a couple of questions and he was just going back and forth about it. And he literally said, "I just need that respect, bro." I don't know whether he said that when he was on with him but he later he was posting to his stories where it was just him watching film of himself, play after play after play after play. So it got started with, they put out that list of tight ends and Jimmy started responding to the list of tight ends with, well, these players wouldn't get more than 30 yards if I were guarding them all game. These players wouldn't get more than 40 yards and maybe this one could get 50. But I mean, it was brash talk for sure. Nice. I loved it. It was fantastic. So you could tell that he had taken some offense, man. He went into the fact he was like, this is a big year for me. He acknowledged that he's got 2 years left on the deal, but this is really the year he has to prove it if he wants the next deal, right? If he's going to get that extension, it's going to happen next offseason. If he makes it to free agency, right, then he's playing on the last year of a deal. Nobody wants to do that. It also made me wonder if he would play on the last year of his deal the way he talked about it. But he talked about making fewer mental mistakes. He was talking about conditioning his body. He was talking about recovery. He was on that, man. He was talking about yoga. He was talking about stretching. He was talking about being tired of these freak injuries, of these soft tissue injuries. So it really was him venting a bit of like where he's at, what he's gone through. And I just thought to myself, I think it's fair. I think it's fair that he asks for that respect, that he's upset that he doesn't get it. Because if you look back, he just switched over to the number 1 jersey, right? They just came out with these beautiful 94 throwbacks. Was Jimmy Ward the longest tenured 49er player at this point? Was he featured in that video that they did in his new number 1 jersey? No, he wasn't even in it. They don't even sell his. I want one. I want a Jimmy jersey. Yes. I want the stitched one, but I can't get it because they don't do a custom stitched one and they don't think Jimmy's important enough to be on there as one of the special players.
You hear that, Jimmy?
Jimmy G is on there, the guy who probably won't be on the roster next year, but Jimmy Ward,
and why is that? Because they're trying to sell jerseys and they think Jimmy's more profitable than Jimmy Ward. End of story.
No. And the reason Jimmy's not as popular as he might want to be is the 49ers' fault. He has done everything that's asked of him, right?
Yep.
I mean, how do they play him versus the safeties that get all of these interceptions? I mean, I'm interested to hear your take on that. What is your view of what they asked Jimmy Ward to do that limits his statistical performances?
Well, he's not really playing safety on passing downs. He plays a lot of nickelback, and he's in man-to-man coverage, shutting people down, making the quarterback throw elsewhere. So that's why he's making the point of how many yards he's giving up. Like, he doesn't have the classic stats that show up in a box score, interceptions, forced fumbles, but he's in man-to-man coverage and he's locking people up. So what he needs to do and what he's doing is to be his biggest hype man.
Yeah.
He needs to be his biggest hype man because the Bay Area media is not going to do it. The national media is not going to do it. We'll do it, but the team won't even do it. They'll promote Jimmy freaking Garoppolo before they promote Jimmy Ward and Jimmy Garoppolo's history. So yeah, he needs to go out and be his biggest promoter the way that Richard Sherman used to be.
Yeah.
Himself.
Yeah. I mean, I want to take on a little bit of that. I want to keep promoting Jimmy Ward because I think he's fantastic. He is the personality that this offseason I really got to know. And I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't seen that come out of him. And I like it, man. I think he's got a great personality. I think that he has this certain je ne sais quoi about him that is just cool, man. I think he's a real cool player. I now understand why other players described him that way, as being a cool dude. He really is.
And I feel like he's really come into his own. He's found his voice. Not that he didn't have it, but he's more confident in it. And I think maybe the fact that he got moved around to 8 different positions when he was younger, it's hard to develop an identity. And he's finally stuck at one for a few years. He's established himself as one of the better ones in the league, and he's 30. He now finally can come into his own. It's a late prime for him, but it seems like he's still as good as he ever was, if not better.
If not better. I mean, I give kudos to another co-host on your show, Vish, who I have heard repeatedly defending both Ward and Tart. And I love it. I love hearing that because I feel like those of us that watch film have to do a better job of explaining to the rest of the fan base just how good Jimmy Ward is. That lockdown coverage that he was going through on his Instagram stories was remarkable. I mean, what he does play in, play out, shutting people down in man coverage is something to behold. And more of us have to vocalize it so that the fan base jumps on it and they can put his damn jersey out there.
Jimmy, come on my channel. Let's go live. We can watch film. You can show the whole thing. I'm interested. Let's give you some more promotion, man. You deserve it. And I think you're a cool guy. Come on my show. Come on my show. All right, I'll talk to you in the locker room. Matt H says, can we put respect on Steve Wallace double helmet? Oh, absolutely. Definitely a good call. He was one of the starters on that 94 team.
Yeah.
Put some respect on it.
Double helmet.
All right. Next topic. Are we overly optimistic to expect the 49ers to make the playoffs this year? I mean, they've only done it 4 times in the last 18 years.
And am I correct here? And my assumption was that your record prediction, I watched when you did the full schedule with your father, went through, and I think you landed at 12-5. 11-6,
12-5, one of the
11-6, 12-5 in that range. And that makes the playoffs most years. It would be a fluke if that doesn't make it.
Especially with 7 teams making it.
Right. So I think that you look at our predictions and that's basically going game by game, predicting how one team will do against the other. So my thought was, well, let's get a little more granular. If we're making those predictions, let's start looking at the players and what we're expecting from the players in order to achieve that result that we have predicted in record. Because I agree with you. I would go anywhere from 11-6 to 13-4 as predicting the record this year. I haven't gone through the games yet, but I know for a fact that's about where I would land. And so now we need to think of some way to quantify these players. So I thought of 4 categories of projections that we could go through. And I think it makes sense not to try and fit the whole team in right now. We could do the defense this week. Next week, we do the offense and sort of wrap up what we think in total of it. Sure. So the 4 categories are, we project them to play at least as well as they played last year. That to me is the most reasonable assumption. If you have a history, a body of work, someone has played up to a certain level, and you expect them to continue playing at that level, that's not a stretch, right? That's pretty normal.
Yep. Yes.
The next one is you're expecting them to improve their play, that you're expecting them to take the next step, or they are taking on an expanded role. So just to give you an example so that you know, like Samson Ebukam would fit into this category. He played one role with the Rams. Now he's coming over to the 49ers. He's being asked to fill a larger role. So you're projecting that he can fill that larger role. The next category is recovering from major injury, which of course we have a few of those players. And obviously there's some risk with that. And then the fourth category is a rookie that needs to contribute this year. And that's obviously like a 50-50 chance. I mean, worse if you're looking at the later rounds of the draft. So I think as you go down the categories, there's more risk involved. And the exercise is, once you have put the players into these categories, you can see, are the vast majority of players in the category where the projection is most accurate, that we just need them to do what they did last year? Or are the majority of the players in these concerning categories where we're projecting that they're going to do something they didn't do last year?
Guy. Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. So defense this week, just going through it. Would you rather go section by section and you give the names, or you want me to go through and give you a few of my names on each?
Well, you go first. You name some names and I'll see if I can add some more.
All right. To add a little context, I'm starting the defense on a high note because when you look at defensive rankings for the 49ers last year, we were actually 5th in total defense for yards given up per game, right?
Yep.
But scoring defense, we were 17th, right? So there was a mismatch in scoring defense versus total defense. And I think that statistically speaking, you would expect that a 5th in total defense would be lower in scoring defense. So I think that there's some optimism in that the offense put the defense in some bad situations last year. Hopefully that won't occur as frequently this year. That seems more like a statistical anomaly. Yes. All right. Going with players that play at least as good as they did last year. This, I think, is a reasonable assumption. I think it's a reasonable assumption to think that Fred Warner is going to be an all-pro this year.
Why would he not continue to improve?
Right.
He's 24 years old. He's only been in the league 3 years. Why would he not continue to improve? He can still improve.
Super heady guy. Yeah. Super smart, super physical, like working on his craft 1,000% every offseason.
Why would we think he's topped out now? No, I think he's still improving. Yeah.
Yeah. Still improving and at least going to play as good as he did last year.
Yeah.
Dre Greenlaw. This one for me, you may disagree, but this goes into play at least as good as he did last year. I don't know that I expect him to take the next leap in pass coverage, but against the run, I think he is a well above average linebacker against the run, and I expect him to be that way this year as well.
He should at least be as good as he was last year. I expect him to improve, but he should not regress.
This one is with an asterisk because he's only done it really twice, and that's Jason Barrett. I think it's reasonable to assume that he'll have as good of a season as he did last year, but I don't think it's reasonable to assume he'll be healthy all year. So there's that asterisk.
We know how he plays when he's healthy. It's not like he'll come out and all of a sudden fall apart or not be effective. He's effective. We just don't know how many games he'll play.
Right. So like he's in the category, but there's certainly that little star there.
Yes.
Kaywan Williams, same thing. Except now he's older. He has an extensive injury history and an injury, from last year, not major, but missed some games, missed half the year. So he falls into that category of I expect him to play at that level, but there's another asterisk.
Yes. Cool.
Same thing with Jaquiski Tart. I think it's fair to expect when he plays, he'll be at that level, but injury history.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ward, injury history, but healthy for the most part for 2 seasons now. Certainly back to the medium, right? Back to the level of missing that average of 3 games in the NFL. And then E-Man Mosley is on there for me.
Yes.
And DJ Jones.
Yes.
So I'll tell you, I was actually surprised at the number of starters that fall into this category. I was not overly optimistic when I stumbled into this topic. I thought to myself, am I being overly optimistic? My immediate thought was, yes, I probably am, because I'm a diehard fan that just won't admit.
And Kyle Shanahan kind of made it seem like people are being a little overly optimistic at the state of the franchise. Like you had John Lynch over here being like, hey, we're better than the 2019 team. And Kyle's like,
yeah. I thought it was interesting. I went back and looked, and they cut that. Kyle answered that first, but they cut it and put John's answer first.
Interesting.
That Greg Papa was looking right at Kyle, and if you take the two and stitch them together, you can tell that it was a directed at Kyle. Kyle answered, and then John went next. But whatever media PR wanted it the other way,
right? Because Kyle's answer was so ridiculous. Okay,
it was pretty negative. So I was pleasantly surprised by the number of players that fell into that. Now, of those names, are there any there where you feel like you strongly disagree that you would pull them out of that category? Like, you could say with Kaywan Williams,
I got one more.
Missed half the
I got
season.
one more. No, I disagree. No, I don't disagree with any of your names. But what about someone like Mike McGlinchey? I mean, how could he possibly play worse than he played last year?
Ooh, yeah. That one's on the offensive side. So
my
I push
bad.
that to next week. But that would definitely fall into that category. A little teaser for next week.
Sorry. Mike,
all right.
We're going to have nice things to say about you next week.
We are.
Yeah.
All right. So improve play or take on an expanding role. Like this gets into the category of I don't think it's fair to expect them to do this, but we're counting on it if we're saying they're going to make the playoffs. Eric Armstead. We're all projecting that, a healthy defensive line will return Eric to 2019 form.
No question, right? That he won't have to rush from the edge anymore. He'll be back in the interior. He'll have the luxury of playing with Nick Bosa. All of these things, yes.
Right.
They're paying him to give him 8-9 sacks.
They are, but that makes several assumptions. That assumes that he is more productive when he has higher caliber players around him, which I think is a reasonable assumption. But it's assuming that the higher caliber players on the edges are going to be healthy and make some impact this year. And that seems like a big assumption.
Yep.
All right. Recovering from major. Oh, no. The rest of the list on the improving play. Samson Ebukam. Got to name him. Samson.
Yep.
That's a big step to go from what he was doing in Los Angeles to what I think that we're asking of him in San Francisco.
What about Javon Kinlaw? Does he fall in that range?
I think Kinlaw's got to be in the improved play or take on the extended role. I think he's got to be. Yeah.
They need some sacks from him. They need more of an impact from him.
Yep. I wouldn't call it a disappointing rookie year, but I had hoped for more because of the guy he was replacing. Let's
put it this way. It's a fine rookie year, but it wouldn't be a fine second year. He needs to improve. He needs to take the next step.
He does. Especially if we are going to be another top 5 defense, we need to have that stout center of the line.
I think there's a lot of pressure and expectations on Javon Kinlaw this year. He may be up to it, but I think he needs to be good.
Yes, I would agree. I think he'll face a lot of scrutiny if he's not.
True. That's the way it goes. That's the territory with these first-round picks. It's why Jimmy Ward and Eric Armstead got a lot of crap for a long time, and why Eric Armstead continued to get the crap.
That's right. High expectations. All about those high expectations.
That's true.
All right, recovering from major injury. Really just 2, but they're pretty key positions. Bosa and Ford, right? Those are pretty critical. You're talking about your 2 edge
Bay Area baller has one. What about Arden Key? That's his guy, man.
So, I mean, what I did was focus on players that I think are actually going to get significant snaps, and I'm just not sure Arden Key is going to get significant snaps this year.
But he's a sleeper. Thank you, Barry, a baller. We want to give him some props. Okay, what's the next?
If he's like D Ford, that I expect nothing from him. So if he gives us anything, that's a win. Sure.
I will say I expect more from Arden Key than D Ford. Is that controversial?
Because Arden Key will play. Even if it's mistakes, I expect more from Arden Key than D Ford because it's hard to imagine him stepping back on the field.
Yes.
But yeah, so you have literally your bookend defensive ends that are all in question. And if you look at people that we're asking to improve play or coming back from major injury, all of our edge rushers are in those major assumption categories where we are making a leap of faith in saying that they are going to be productive this year. The entire edge rush.
Yes. The whole thing.
So it doesn't make me exactly comfortable about these projections. And then we look at, so one thing that I did notice a positive trend was that our entire defensive backs, all of our secondary is in that least risk category of we just need them to do what they did last year. But a lot of injury concerns. And this brings up our final category, which is rookies that may need to contribute. Mm-hmm. And that's the 2 cornerbacks, right? Yes. Any injury to our starters in the secondary along the defensive backs is going to bring in one of these rookies that is basically a 50-50 shot as to whether they can contribute in the NFL year 1.
That's right. So those 2 corner, I wouldn't expect anything from Talanoa Hufanga. My goodness. Maybe. I mean, only drafted 3 defensive players overall. Yeah. But the 3 DBs.
You would think.
Honestly, you don't know because Jaquiski Tart misses he misses a lot of games. I'm sorry, Jaquiski. His backup Tavarius Moore is already out. Right. And then you got the backup there is Tony Jefferson, who hasn't played in a while.
Since coming off of major injury.
So maybe Talanoa Hufanga is the one that's going to be starting a bunch of games for this team. I don't know.
He's certainly looking to contribute on special teams with the way that he hits. And I think that the way he could play around the line of scrimmage, that he could contribute as a rookie, but it's certainly a stretch to say that he will.
Right. So that's okay. All right.
So, I mean, it leaves us to final decision until we've covered the offense. But I got to say that I went into this thinking I was being very optimistic, that I was being overly optimistic. And in looking at the defense first, it gave me a little bit of hope. It gave me some hope that maybe I'm not being overly optimistic. There's some concern areas, but
mostly on the defensive line?
Mostly on the line, mostly on pass rush, which is arguably
Yes.
the most important thing that our defense does.
Yes.
So you could say is a concern. But I think we're being optimistic. I don't think we're being overly optimistic when looking purely at the defense. I think that we could have another top 5 defense this year. I think it's we did that without Bosa last year. So even if Bosa doesn't regain form, I think it's possible that we could do it this year.
I think it's fair to say the Niners have an extremely talented defense, an extremely talented roster. I also think it's fair to say that it's made of glass. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Prove me wrong. So given that, I think it makes it that much more important for the 49ers, for Kyle Shanahan, to make it a point of emphasis to reduce the amount of practice injuries as much as possible. If they can get to the week 1 relatively healthy, they should be okay. I know a lot of injuries happened week 2 last year, but a lot of injuries happened in the offseason as well. Ben Garland went down like first week of training camp. Deebo Samuel went down before training camp. If they could just not limp into the season, this team could go very far, very, very far. And you just laid out why. But even the guys that we like, that we think you can depend on, and you know what you're going to get, Jason Verrett, Kaywan Williams, Jaquiski Tart, Jimmy Ward, they all need to stay. This team is made of glass, and Kyle needs to be the one who keeps them in one piece. Humpty Dumpty over here.
As a fan, it pains me to agree with you there, but history bears it out. I mean, it's just a fact that we as fans have to look at and acknowledge at a bare minimum, even if we don't accept it and use it when we make our projections. But I think that it's, there is some room for optimism there. I think that it's not unreasonable for us to be optimistic going into it. I do wish that more players were talking about the recovery issue as Jimmy Ward did. I mean, you could hear it in his voice that he is really focused on that. And perhaps something he can do as a vocal leader within the defense is get up on the mountaintops and shout that to the rest of the team, because that yoga, that stretching, that recovery is critical in these soft tissue injuries that we're seeing with the 49ers. I don't know what type of bearing it has on the major ones, but for sure the soft tissue injuries.
I think what we're saying is that the only team that's going to stop the 49ers from making the playoffs this year is the 49ers. And that's the way it's been. And that's the problem with this organization. You can give them credit and say they have a lot of things going for them. They have talent. They have bad luck. It's beyond bad luck at this point. They get in their own way every freaking year. And it's like not cool. It's not amusing. You got to find a solution. You got to be honest about it. And I think at least the fact that we've diagnosed it properly, the NFL seems to be stepping in and diagnosing it too. They should be able to find the solution here. And Kyle, if you're the good coach that everyone thinks you are, year 5 and on, should have mostly winning seasons from here on. You've built this whole thing. You have experience as a head coach now. You've learned the ropes. Just win 10 games this year, man. Just win 10. You can do it. I believe in you. I seriously do.
The motivation for Kyle, if we don't make the playoffs this year, Kyle, the NFL can force you to be the team on Hard Knocks next year. And I know you don't want that, Kyle. So remember, you've got to make the playoffs to make sure that doesn't happen.
One more thing, Kyle. You burned all your bridges in the national media. I don't know why you did that. But over this Mac Jones thing, you led a bunch of very powerful national media members to think that you were taking Mac Jones, and then you didn't, and then you kind of laughed at him after. I don't know why they thought that. What were they thinking? And so now a bunch of guys who could have had your back and vouched for you and been like, yeah, Kyle's had 4 losing seasons in 5 years, but it's not his fault, and this isn't his fault, and he's really good here. No one's going to do that for you anymore nationally. I mean, you already saw Adam Schefter drop the dime on you yesterday. I don't know why you did that, but you need to win. Because if you lose this season, I'm telling you, there's going to be way less people defending you. The people who be defending you will be like, I don't know at that point. That's a good question.
I don't know if I will defend him if he has a losing season this year. I will take a very hard look at Kyle as a head coach if he has a losing season this year.
Okay. Mailbag time.
Yep. So as hopefully everybody knows who watches this show, I do my own 49ers mailbag. It's 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. You send me your questions. I don't care. You can put them in YouTube. You can hit me on Twitter. My YouTube channel is Rob Schuh, same as my last name, Schuh, which is just German for shoe, Shoe. So if you forget how to spell it, just look up. I had interesting story, random tidbit. Nobody's going to enjoy this but me. But I went to go pick up a prescription for one of my pets yesterday. Yeah. And the woman behind the counter was like, well, that's a weird last name. That's a strange spelling. And I was like, yeah, I know. Unless you're German. In that case, it's just Chew. Yeah. And she was like, oh, I lived in Germany for 3 years and I've never seen that spelling. So I don't think it is. She was so confident in that it made me second guess something I've known about my own last name for my entire life. I had to Google it. I was like,
she told you were wrong. That's the best.
Yeah. About my own last name.
She's like, look, sir, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I've thought about this for 5 seconds and you're wrong. That's rich. I like that. Yeah.
Clearly. Yeah. So anyway, Rob Schuh is the YouTube channel. It's got mailbags. It's got comedy stuff. It's good. So go in, subscribe, new content coming.
It is good. It's got acting that's much better than what I did earlier today. You see Rob is good. I sprung this on him like an hour before because I knew he could handle it. He did a great job.
Yeah. Well, and better than what you saw there of Kyle, I'll say, because that's live and these are
that's true.
Pre-recorded. So
yeah,
go there, subscribe. And when you submit mailbag questions like this one, the best one comes on the show with Grant and I. We answer it together. So
that's right.
This one comes from Ben Camperman, someone that you know, the Camper Report.
Yeah. So I wanted to show yesterday. He was terrific. About 45 minutes. Subscribe to Benjamin Camperman.
Ben's great. Yep. Love that guy. Yep. I was nowhere near that productive at his age. I don't know what I was doing back then, but it certainly wasn't making YouTube channels talking Niners.
There was no YouTube back then. Let's be clear.
No, there was not.
There was not.
Let's not age me, Grant, because that'll take us back.
I came out my senior year of high school.
That's right. So he asked an interesting question that I hadn't really thought about, but do you think that the Niners will try trading picks instead of Jimmy for a cornerback from New England? And if so, who do you think they want more, Stephon Gilmore or J.C. Jackson? Would you care to answer first?
I love Benjamin. What picks? They don't got no picks.
Yeah.
Of course they would prefer to trade players. I'm thinking the Niners are actually trying to figure out how to get some picks back. And that's probably why they're hanging on to Jimmy Garoppolo, because they're like, look, we have no picks. We gave up one to get him. He was worth something a couple of years ago. Maybe if we wish upon a star, we'll get something for him. I think they're looking to get picks, not give picks. So player for player. And I don't know if New England would want player for player, but maybe they would. You don't know. You could do it.
It's a good question. So I'm with you. No, I don't think the 49ers would give up any more picks at this point. I think if they weren't willing to give up those 2 picks for Julio Jones, which Kyle clearly loves and would have wanted on his team, I don't think that they're going to give up picks to bring in a defensive player that Kyle can't use within his offense. I don't think that that's going to happen. But I do think, to your point, that they might trade Jimmy to the Pats for either of those players. They might be happy to do it. And I actually Googled that and came back with a Patriots beat writer who I don't know if he's got any insight into it, but suggested a trade with J.C. Jackson in which the 49ers would trade Jimmy, get back J.C. Jackson, who is on a second-round tender, so he's only making $3.38 million. We would send out a significant chunk of change in sending Jimmy out, right? That would get rid of all but 1-point-something million in dead cap money. And he suggested that we would get a third-rounder back from New England in said trade. Now, I think that might be a little generous at this point in time. I think the 49ers would entertain that. And if it were a second-rounder, I think they would do it, no questions asked. They might even do it if it were just J.C. Jackson and a third-rounder. But the question in my mind, and the one I want to pose to you is, do the Patriots really even want Jimmy anymore?
I think they do. I think they like him very much. I don't think they're that wedded to Cam at all. And the fact that they have Mac Jones, they didn't trade up for Mac Jones. He could have been the best player available. But just listening to Bill Belichick talk about Jimmy last year, I think he really likes Jimmy. I think he feels that that's a guy he developed and should still have. I don't know. I don't think he's going to give up much for him because I don't think he wants to lose the deal. But if the Niners were to cut him, I think he would sign with New England.
That makes sense to me. If they were trying to acquire Jimmy and they're not super attached to Cam, and it sounds as if even if it's a smokescreen, that at least the information coming out right now is Mac Jones is not ready to start at this point. Do you think that maybe a deal that could get done that both parties might be interested in would be involving a Cam and Jimmy swap with JC
I don't think
Jackson?
the Niners would want Cam because I think Cam wants to play. I think Cam wants to compete. He wants an opportunity. I don't think Cam's ready to just be a backup and help mentor Trey Lance. I think that's one of the things I like about Cam. He has a massive chip on his shoulder, unlike
he does
Jimmy. He has something to prove. So I don't know that's a good fit on the 49ers.
I wondered if
he should go to Denver, honestly, and go over there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That would be a good fit. I wondered if just the playing style for Cam would be a good mentorship for Trey. But
I just don't see him as a mentor at this point. He could be down the line, but he has something he wants to prove. God love him, man. God love him. He would come in here and compete, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need that with Trey, man. You need everything, all the resources going into Trey. Make sure Trey's ready.
Last part of the question is which of the two do you think they'd prefer? All things being equal, clearly, I think with salary, Gilmore's $16.2 million. And like I said, JC Jackson's on that second round tender, which is $3.38 million. So I think salary wise, they'd want JC Jackson, but talent wise, which do you think might be a better fit on the team?
Give me the younger guy.
Yeah.
Give me the DB who's in his mid-20s. Yeah.
And came off 9 interceptions last year.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it seems to me like what happens is if people are afraid to throw at Gilmore and they're throwing it at JC Jackson, he can produce like that. Well, similar effect could happen on the Niners next to Jason Verrett.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think either happens. Both will be free agents next year, so they would be 1-year rentals if the Niners got them. I think the 49ers will probably just wait and pursue one of the two in free agency next year.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what happens with Jimmy. Alex is saying, what are all the teams that could trade for Jimmy? Basically, I feel like it's a lot of teams that maybe Jimmy wouldn't want to go to because he can veto. New England is one. I think New England is going to really give the Niners some disrespectful offers for Jimmy, and that's probably why the Niners haven't sent him there yet. There's also Miami. Miami's interesting. They have Tua, and they're committed to Tua for now, but you see teams jump ship on young quarterbacks all the time quickly. I mean, look at Josh Rosen. If Tua comes out and struggles in year 2 and the rest of the team is really good, will they mess around or will they trade for Jimmy Garoppolo? There's a lot of people in that organization who are from New England and have worked with him before.
Yeah. Yeah. The other ones off the top of my head that I have looked into that could be fits. None of them are perfect. I don't think Jimmy gets traded this year. I think he's on the roster. I know fans hate to hear that, but the number of teams has just dwindled. I think you're spot on with New England. Intriguing with Miami. I hadn't given that consideration, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that Philly is similar to Miami in that they are currently committed.
Let me just say, though, that falls into the genre of the group of teams that Jimmy would veto.
Right. So does Washington as a team that doesn't have a clear-cut quarterback, but he would probably veto.
I think he would go to Washington.
Scenario.
Washington's a hell of a team. Washington's
with
good.
Ron Rivera?
Yeah. Washington's really good. They got that crazy defense. They got Terry McLaurin. That's a good team. I don't know if they would want him because they have Fitzpatrick, who's cheaper, better. I don't know. I don't know about that. But
I think the team that wants him has to want to commit to him because the $25 million is the problem. You just don't want to pay that for his level of play.
Right.
But if you can spread that out over 4 or 5 years, it's not so bad. And then I think, Denver obviously has to be mentioned just because of their quarterback situation, and they've been players in all of the quarterback intrigue.
Let's say Ryan Fitzpatrick goes down early this year, then Washington football team would be in the mix.
Yeah. I do think, as much as I think Jimmy will be on the team all season, if a good offer comes in, I do not doubt that the 49ers would accept it. I'm just predicting there won't be a good offer, and therefore Jimmy will be on the team. But if a first-round offer comes in from a team that suffers an injury, I think he's out and we're moving on regardless of what this season looks like.
Washington and Miami are two teams to look at because they have very precarious situations at quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick is streaky. He has good years. He has bad years. He's old. And then in Miami, Tua looks terrible, in my opinion. So we'll see what he does this year. And that's a team that's ready to go. That's a very good team in Miami. If they had Justin Herbert instead of Tua, they could be contenders right now. So we'll see what they got.
Could be a good fit, man.
Absolutely.
You excited to see the Cowboys on the Hard Knocks? I think that's going to make some good television, man.
I don't have HBO. I got to get that and watch that. But I'll be. That's gonna be an Oxnard.
I would think so.
It's gonna get a lot of views.
Yeah. It'll make its way to YouTube or streaming some ways. You'll get to watch some of it.
I'll watch some of it, yeah. But I'm really more excited to watch Brick by Brick, Year 5. More bricks.
More
featuring. Rob, thanks a lot, man. This was a great show. I threw you a curveball the first 20 minutes, but you knocked it out of the park, man. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Grant.
Thank you, everyone, for watching our dramatic interpretation of a meeting that probably never happened. We'll be back next week with other fictional accounts of real things. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later.